Hello. Welcome everybody to the ERC webinar on the Advanced Grant 2024 call, which deadline for submissions is in 10 days on the 29th of August. My name is Josefina Engedaque, and I'm the head of the call coordination unit in the ERC Executive Agency, the ERCEA, and chair of the ERCEA Task Force on Lump Sums, and I will moderate this webinar. I have with me several colleagues from the agency who are experts in the ERC lump sum model and who coordinate the calls. For example, Line.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Line Fredslund Folgers. I'm coordinating the ERC proof of concept call, and I'm also a member of the task force on lump sums.
Dia.
Hello, I'm Dia Anagnostou, and I work with the Advanced Grants Call Coordination team.
Angela.
Hello, this is Angela Wittelsberger. I'm head of sector in the Life Sciences unit at the European Research Council Executive Agency.
Lawrence.
Good morning. My name is Lawrence Terrier. I'm working in the grant management department, which is dealing with the grant preparation and most of the implementation phase as well.
Alejandro. Muted.
Yep. That should work now.
Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alejandro. I work in Department 3, so in the legal team. So I'm here to answer any question you may have.
And last but not least, the wonderful technical support from Benjamin.
Hello, good morning, everybody. I'm Benjamin. I'm a scientific officer from Social Science and Humanities Unit.
We have prepared this webinar from expertise with scientific, financial, and legal fields. And Line, are you sharing the slides? We are going to present some slides. First of all, some housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded and will be made available for all applicants on the ERC website. So if you don't want to share your name or your cameras, I think that the cameras are off anyway, but there will be some possibilities of intervening and asking questions. If you want to keep confidentiality, you can. But know that is going to be shared. The questions and answers will be managed on the Slido tab. We are on the WebEx platform. You will see there is a tab on your right with an arrow that says Slido and has the same Slido functionalities as the app. If for some of you this doesn't work, or if you feel more comfortable, we will share also a QR code and you can connect from a mobile device or another web browser. The chat is deactivated, and also the raise hand function due to the number of participants and the limited time. But any question you can write them on Slido. You can vote for questions, and our team will moderate the Slido, and we will bring to the webinar the most voted, the most interesting ones, and we will try to maximize the number of questions that we answer online. There is an agenda of this webinar. I would quickly show it. I don't know if the slides are, yes. So an introduction with the objectives of the webinar, the main information sources, the novelties in the ERC Work Program 2024, at the Advanced Grant Call, and some general reminders of the lump sum funding. But then the main points of this webinar will be troubleshooting for proposal submission and the questions received so far, for proposal evaluation, and also the questions received so far, and of course extended Q&A sessions. So we will show you the sources of information, but we hope that we can clarify any problem. So first of all, the objectives. This is a troubleshooting. We have put a number of information online. We did a webinar, YouTube, in June. And actually, the first thing that I would like to ask you is, where are you coming from? In Slido, you can go to the polls tab and answer the question. Just to know the audience, where do you come from? What is your country of affiliation? I don't see how many. There are no active polls at the moment. Maybe we can activate the poll. Yes. So the objectives, I continue, is the troubleshooting. If you are preparing proposals or you are helping to prepare proposals, we are 10 days before the deadline. You might want some help with the new tables or some problems and submission. And we are focusing on the changes related to lump sums on the step of the submission and the evaluation. If there are other general questions and we have the time, we can try to answer them. But for implementation and payment, we will have to refer to the previous webinar or to all the information that is available online. Can we see how many people have answered? Yes. If you prefer to work on Slido separately from the integrated tab here in WebEx, you can use this QR code or the hashtag ADG 2024 and the passcode ERC 2024. We will share these slides. Actually, I think we can already share during the webinar the PDF, but that they will also be available tomorrow in the website, on the website. Can we see the word cloud, Benjamin, on what is the country of affiliation of our?
You should be able to see it in a Slido in WebEx. So for now, the most popular country is Germany.
And answering one of the questions that I can see already, there are participants from outside the EU, because the rules of the ERC grants don't exclude any country, provided they move into the EU or associated countries to do the research. So the current country of affiliation can be anywhere in the world, with a very few exceptions. So we have Germany, UK, Italy, and then we have Switzerland, Spain, Austria, Sweden, Denmark, Poland, and you see in concentric circles, we have, I think it's very, very, very nice. I see around 30, more than 30 countries. Welcome, everybody. The second question in the poll is, did you attend the YouTube webinar on the 7th of June about lump sums? Don't worry, because we are going to give you, yeah, good, okay. We were worried that this was going to be redundant, but if we know that 2/3 of the audience didn't follow the webinar is available in YouTube offline. You can still watch it, but it's focused on lump sums. But today, okay, it's a very good thing, because we can have coverage of people who didn't follow it, and we are not going to be afraid of repeating concepts. And the third and last question that I'm going to ask is, who are you? Are you a principal investigator that is writing a proposal, or do you work in a host institution giving support to the scientist, or are you a member of the scientific team, or are you a national contact point, or other? And yes, I can see that half and half. So we have PIs preparing the application. We know that typically in advanced grants, we have 50% of resubmissions. So this year, you will have to adapt. If you are resubmitting a proposal from last year, you will have to adapt the format. And this is why we are going to give you the tips today. But it's good to see that half approximately of the audience is the principal investigation themselves, and the other half, it's very good to have the support staff that is helping prepare the submission. Thank you very much. This was for the polls. Then we go directly to the introduction and to the few concepts that we are going to give you. First one, when we share these with you, all these links will be clickable. So where to get the information? Basically, the Bible is the work program. All the changes, everything is in the work program. Then additional information for details, technical details and concepts, etc. You can watch the webinar in June. You have the link. You can read the information for applicants that you will have here the link. And I know it's a complicated document. Not everybody reads it, but sometimes you can have a quick search and you find the question, the answer to your question. Or you can look at the questions and answers on the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. We, of course, today we are going to share some of the questions that we have received after the last actualization of these questions and answers, but still there are many questions that are represented there. But if you need some personalized help, or if your problem or your question is a very specific one, or if you don't want to share today with other attendants of the webinar your particular questions or your projects, you can always write to this email address. We have personalized and very quick answers, and is not only the call coordination team, thank you very much for the help, but also if the question cannot be answered directly by the call coordination, we get assistance from legal and financial experts. Or you can contact the IT help desk if the issue is technical or IT related. Next slide, please. The first is about the work program 2024, and for that I'm going to present you Dia, an agnostic from the call coordination team. She's the call coordinator for advanced grants, and she's answering questions every day. Dia?
Yes, maybe Josefina, the next slide, you can switch to this next slide so that I can say a few words. Welcome everyone. I will just say a few words about the submissions to the advanced grants. Just briefly to put in context this year's picture, you see here that the number of proposals that are submitted to the advanced grants call varies from year to year, not dramatically, even though we do have some exceptions. You see in year 2020, there was a huge surge, maybe because of COVID, the COVID specific circumstances. But overall, you see you have some ups and downs by a certain percentage. So the number of submitted, the success rate is determined by how many proposals are submitted and how many proposals are funded, of course. And how many proposals we fund, it has to do with the budget that is available for the college here, and that also varies. Just as a broadly, success rates in the past years have been around 13%, 14.6% was the success rate of last year. Let's take a look in the next slide how things look like this year in the 2024 call. We have a budget of 703 million and 500,000 euro for this year, and we expect with this budget to fund 285 projects. So we anticipate, based on the monitoring that we do of how many proposals are already in draft form or have already been submitted in the electronic submission system, we think that there is a slightly increasing trend in comparison to last year, 2023. But this is only a tentative assessment because the bulk of proposals are submitted in the last week before the deadline. So this is all on my part, and I'll pass the word to my colleagues who have lots of very useful information for you on lump sums and other things. Thank you.
Yes, now we give the floor to Line, but Line, maybe you can go 2 slides before and just give a word on the main changes in the work program 2024.
Yes, I can quickly do that. So whereas today we're focusing in this webinar on what has changed as a consequence of introducing a lump sum financial model for the Advanced Grant 2024 call, There were other changes this year for the work program 2024, and more specifically, the Scientific Council decided to introduce a clearer focus on the research project when the panels are conducting their evaluation. There were also some changes to the structure of the CV and the track record, and that we have published the background for this on the website if you want to look into these details. And there were also a few changes to the evaluation procedure, mainly that there is a cap on the number of proposals per panel that can be promoted to step 2, and this is 44 maximum per panel. So I think this covers the main changes, but it's just to set it all in context. And then I go back to my part. As you all know by now, the 2024 Advanced Grant Call will pilot what we call an ERC-specific lump sum funding model that we believe can work while preserving and protecting the ERC specificities. The model has been carefully developed and adapted to have minimal changes compared to the actual cost model that the ERC main grants have used until now. The major reason that the European Commission has been pushing for the use of lump sum funding is that it's expected to achieve, I don't know, I get some pop-ups here on the window.
We don't see it.
That's good. Okay, and I will just try to.
We just see the slide.
Okay, perfect.
Your message is coming, but
you don't see a black box in the middle? Okay, fine. So the major reason to introduce lump sum funding is that it's expected to achieve a major reduction of the administrative burden because the financial reporting will disappear together with the financial audit on lump sum funded projects. The ERC-specific model requires slightly more structured information on the estimated budget and the resources behind these estimates for each proposal. All other processes, except for the reporting and payment processes, remain similar to the actual cost model. For instance, the evaluation criteria, the proposal templates, the scientific reporting on funded projects, and project amendments. So a few more words on the lump sum principles of the ERC Advanced Grant Call. So if funded, each project will receive one single lump sum contribution for the whole project per beneficiary. And this is because the project will be granted as one administrative work package, regardless of how it's structured. This is to allow you as PI maximum flexibility to pursue your project objectives during the project implementation. The estimated budget for your proposal should be based on the best proxy of your institution's underlying cost for the project activities. And as usual, your estimated budget and the underlying resources will be assessed by the panel during the evaluation of your proposal. The final lump sum amount will therefore be defined by the needs of your project and hence be different from project to project. The ERC maintains a cap for the Advanced Grant Call of 2.5 million euro per project and up to 1 million euro of additional funding if justified by the project needs. The payment will be based on what we call completion of work, which does not mean that the outcome of the planned activities needs to be successful. So in conclusion to this first brief introduction of the ERC lump sum funding model, it's important for us to emphasize that you as an applicant to this call should not change the way you think up your idea or imagine your project. We do not wish that the advanced grant applicants think out or write up their project any differently than you would have done without this pilot. You should be as ambitious and no less risk-taking than before. You should also not change the way you structure your project. So even if we formally sign the project as one work package, you may still divide and describe your activities in several sub-projects or even call them work packages as you wish. I mentioned before that the basic principles of our funding remain untouched. This includes the evaluation criteria, the principles of flexibility and serendipity, which allow you to make changes and deviations to the original work plan during the implementation of the project. As a last important principle, the ERC Scientific Council decided that the principle of portability, which allows our PIs to move to a different host institution with their project, will also remain untouched. Whoops, here is the Slido.
Yes, I put it, I am showing it from time to time, just to give the opportunity to those who cannot or have difficulties to connect to the Slido or don't want to have it in the same screen, to be able to connect from another device.
Oh.
But I also put it as a reminder so people start asking the questions, but it's very good. We have already 21 questions so far, so please continue.
Thank you so much. So as explained by you, Josefina, we will focus on proposal submission and evaluation today. So I will start with a first block of slides related to proposal submission. Then I will clarify some of the most frequent questions we have received to the call mailbox, and then we take a first set of questions from you, from Slido. So first I will explain the minor changes we've introduced to the administrative form of the proposal, which will allow us to collect more structured information on the proposal budgets. These changes have been made to ensure that the principles of sound financial management are respected, but also some of the changes serve to protect you as principal investigators and to ensure that you provide proper and complete justification for your lump sum request. For the budget table, we ask you to introduce the number of planned person months per staff category. For the budget narrative, where you explain and justify your need for resources, we've split this structurally into 6 text boxes. We've also introduced the use of a new annex, which we call the equipment depreciation table, and which is mandatory for all proposals, regardless if they make use of the equipment or not. And finally, I will speak about the additional declaration 10 of the submission form, which is also mandatory to tick to allow your proposal to be submitted. But what is most important for you as an applicant is to develop well-prepared budget and resources sections, however, with a level of detail that makes sense for a 5-year frontier research project. So, if we look at the budget table, which you will find in section 3 of the administrative PDF form, the first change relates to the staffing of your project. You will see that we managed to keep our specific ERC budget table in part A, but for the advanced rank call, we've introduced a new column for each staff category where you will have to introduce the number of person months per beneficiary. These additional 5 columns are highlighted in orange on this slide. And as before, you will introduce the total personal cost per staff category, and the system will then automatically calculate the average monthly cost for the PI, for the senior staff, the postdocs, the PhD students, and for any other staff. All other cost categories of the ERC budget table remain the same. The reason for our request of this additional information is because staff effort can be described in a number of different ways, for instance, as percentage effort, in-person months, in-person years, as full-time equivalents, etc. And this can be confusing for our panel members when assessing the personal resources required for the project. Secondly, these additional entries will serve to highlight any mistakes in introducing either the effort or the cost related to each staff category, because the average monthly cost that will be automatically calculated will indicate if there is a typo in the figures that you've introduced. The second change, which we've requested to the administrative form, is a new structure for the narrative section, where the text box to explain and justify your budget request is split into 6 individual sections, each with a fixed number of characters. Sections A, B, C, and D corresponds to the overarching sections of the budget table, which you should use if you have any cost budgeted under the relevant section. We've then added 2 additional boxes, one to allow you to explain any request for additional funding, and one to explain if part of the estimated budget is funded from other sources. And the intention is to highlight the information and make sure that the justification follows a clear structure. The overall character limit is extended from 8,000 to 10,000 characters in case you need to make use of all boxes. And to show you how it looks In the PDF form, I will now open one of my test proposals. This is it. I go to section 3, budget. And here you see the budget table on the top. I think most of you have seen this. You have to scroll to have a look at the full budget table. But for instance, if we assume a 40% time commitment for the PI, this will equal 24 person months for a 5-year project. I insert a total cost, for instance, of 120,000 euro, like this. And then the system calculates a cost of 5,000 euro per month. You may insert 1 digit in the number of person months, for instance, 5.5 months of senior staff at a cost of 50,000 euro, which equals 10,000, an average of 10,000 euro per month. So you see that the system automatically calculated the average monthly cost, and it also automatically calculates the indirect costs, so the overheads, and the total eligible cost for the project. You see this here at the end. I want to emphasize that you always have to manually introduce the requested EU contribution, which may be the same or less than the total eligible cost. So this is this last column. This is what you have to fill in manually. And then directly below the budget table, you will find the 6 resources narrative sections, where you should enter a short but comprehensive description and justification for the resources that you request. So this is how it looks. And I go back to my presentation. And here, the equipment depreciation table is a mandatory new annex, which I mentioned, that you should upload together with your Part B1, Part B2, and the host institution letter. This template is part of the zip file that you access once you have created a draft proposal in the Funding and Tenders portal. The new annex has been developed to make sure that each applicant follows the depreciation rules of their institution. And our instruction to you is that you should list all equipment items in this Excel file together with the expected use during the action. The total of these estimated depreciation costs must equal the total equipment cost listed in the budget table cell C2. If you have no budgeted equipment, please remember to still upload an empty Excel file, since it will be blocking your submission if it's not uploaded. All equipment items must be budgeted as depreciation cost and should be in line with international accounting standards and the beneficiary's usual accounting practice. So you have to remember to fill in all fields except where they are automatically calculated, because we do not want you to change the embedded formulas in this file. If you have identical items, you can group them in one line, but only if they have identical time and percentage of use. And then you may explain this in the comment box in the file itself. But you should not add any scientific justification in this table. Your scientific justification for the equipment belongs in the narratives resources section of the Form A, which I just opened and showed you. And then for the budget overall, the main principles are that the budget must include cost estimates that are eligible with the same eligibility conditions as for actual cost grants, that they should be reasonable and non-excessive and in line with the beneficiary's normal accounting practices and respect the principles of best value for money and no conflict of interest. And these principles are all covered by the additional Declaration 10, which you will see in section 1 of the online administrative form, and which is identical and also applicable to all European Commission actions with a lump sum type 2 funding model. And it's important here for me to mention that each applicant organization, so this means each beneficiary, will be responsible for the information declared in the application. that the information may be subject to verification after the establishment of the lump sum contribution, and that false statements or incorrect information may be sanctioned. And this is all part of the footnote of Declaration 10. But I tell you this because it's important that both you as applicants and your institutions, the beneficiaries, are made aware of the importance of this declaration and the responsibility that it puts on your shoulders to provide correct information. On the next 3 slides, I will cover 6 questions which we have received to the call mailbox from our applicants. And the first one is on the fact that we sign each project as one single formal web package. And as I said before, this is to allow the project implementation to be assessed as a whole, so that our grantees can maintain the flexibility they need for a frontier research project. And as I mentioned also before, you are free to structure your research proposal in any form you see fit, so there's no limit to this. We also received many questions on how detailed the budget narrative should be. And here the answer is that you should prepare your budget as if it was under the actual cost model, with reliable approximations of the actual costs you expect to incur, and provide explanation for the resources under each cost category in the relevant text box of the budget narrative. A third set of questions have evolved around the budget table, where you should include all the expected costs for all resources of the project implementation that you foresee. And here it's important to stress that if some resources are not to be funded by the ERC, for instance, if they are covered directly by a beneficiary or by other sources of funding, the corresponding amount should be deducted from your requested EU contribution and then explained in the last section of the budget narrative. Remember to include your scientific justification of all project costs in the relevant sections of the budget narrative, just below the budget table in Form A. The budget table, the scientific justification in the resources narrative section, and the equipment table do not count against the page limit of 14 pages for Part B2. We also received quite many questions on how to calculate or define a person month, which is the amount of time over a month equivalent to one person working full-time. The system will accurately calculate the average cost for a staff category if you simply introduce the number of person months and the total cost charged for each staff category. And then finally, before we go to your questions in Slido, we want to underline that you as applicants should always estimate the personal costs in line with your host institution's accounting practices and salary grids if they exist. The ERC Historical Database on Personal Costs is a tool, and I will come back to this later, that you may use to assess if you need a further justification of your estimated personal cost in case they are significantly higher than our historical data on payments. You should be aware that our data are different than the European Commission Horizon dashboard because our data are based on actual payments, and that you can also filter the data by staff category and country. We therefore advise you to not make use of the general Horizon dashboard when you prepare your proposal. So let's now take some questions from the audience related to the preparation and submission of your proposal. And I will stop sharing my presentation so that we can see some of the questions.
Yes, and we go back to the Slido moderators team. Lawrence?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. We already received quite a few questions about submission itself. Maybe because we will not be able to reply to all of them during the presentation, or at least during this break. I will just highlight one which is not part of the question. It relates to the equipment table. So it seems that many applicants have some trouble to find where to upload or to download the template. But so I will share the most asked questions so we can reply to them.
If you want, Lawrence, I can also quickly show where to.
Yes, that could be good. Directly on the funding and tenders portal.
Yes, and then if that's okay.
Do you want me to stop sharing then?
Yeah, I think I will. So So if I now here, do you see the form again?
Yes.
We do.
And then I say, oh, let's see here. I exit the form. Oh, I probably have to log back in. Sorry about this.
I take
So-
the opportunity to tell the audience that all the questions will be answered. So we have the team of moderators answering some in writing, in some cases giving links to where the question has been, if it has been answered elsewhere, and some of them will be brought here to be answered orally.
Okay.
Even in some cases, if we have time at the end, people can even connect and speak if one question needs some explanation from the person who asked. Okay, we see here.
Yeah,
You
so
are.
this is where you come when you click on my proposals and you select your draft Advanced Grant 2024 proposal. And then here, this is the window, and this is where you download the Part B template. So if I click here, you see a zip file will be downloaded to your computer. And this gives you all the templates for the call, Part B1, Part B2, the host institution letter template, and the template annex of the equipment table. So this is how it goes.
And one of the questions asks if a piece of equipment is not to be depreciated, you don't need to add it in the equipment table, right?
You need to add all equipment in the equipment table, but maybe Lawrence, you want to reply to this?
Once again, you need to follow the practice of your institution. So, and of course the international accounting standards as well. So both should be aligned normally. But I would say that any equipment that will need to be depreciated, and this include as well the specific items which will be fully capitalized. This is still considered as a depreciation, even though the full cost will be written off directly. This needs to be in the table. What should not be included in the table is what is considered as consumable. So anything which is not depreciated over time and is not an asset, capitalized asset.
And the threshold changes depending on the country.
But again, this needs to be aligned with the internal accounting standards. It's not just at the discretion of any institution to define a threshold.
Thank you, Lawrence. Could you show us the questions again so we can try to answer the most
certainly
voted ones?
Can you see the question?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So the first question is about written confirmation from all collaborators. So it does not apply to anyone mentioned by name in the proposal, but it does apply to all team members or collaborators, and also if you have any people involved in an advisory board, for instance. So it can even be people who will not be paid from the project.
The second question.
Yeah.
The second question has just been answered, and it was about the equipment table.
And then the third question, I think it's for Lawrence, because it's about the certificate on financial statements, which has been mandatory for all actual cost grants, but for lump sum it's different. Lawrence? What?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm still not very experienced with WebEx, so I had to stop sharing in order to be able to reply. So one of the biggest simplification of the lump sum model is that you will not have to report any cost. The cost actually incurred during the implementation will no longer be relevant or to be reported, which means obviously that there will be no financial audits. and here I emphasize on the financial part of the audit, because we received some question already that will be replied later on about possible technical reviews, for instance. But so no financial audit, and as well no certificate of financial on the financial statements, since there is no cost reported. As a result, you cannot claim eligible costs in relation to the CFS.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Maybe you can show with us the questions that have been labeled as submission. Because there are a few.
So the next question is about subcontracting. In case there was no subcontracting planned, but it appears that it is the necessary once you start the project, if this would be allowed within the lump sum budget. And I think this is a case that we can say, yes, this will be allowed, because you will have very much flexibility. You can always consult with your project officer and the scientific officer whether a change to the project will have to generate an amendment, but this is certainly possible. Then there is a general comment about our call deadline in August.
Yes, and this is a general one, and we understand, we feel for you that this is a very uncomfortable deadline, and the reason it has been set that way is to give time for the evaluation, so to the financial analysis of the budget and mistakes, etc., because it was the first call. But unfortunately, we cannot change it for the work program 2025, because this has already been approved. We always do the work programs with 1 year in advance, but we will certainly take it into account, and we are now preparing the work program 2026, and we will have to twitch a little bit the calendar. Line, you are in charge of coordinating the call calendar. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we always have to weigh out a number of different considerations vis-a-vis our applicants, our experts, the teams that are working in the ERC, because we have to disperse the panel meetings over the year. So to allow all the individual sub-tasks of running a call to come together and make sense for everyone, so that we can deliver high quality feedback in time for our applicants. And we had 1 year actually where we put back the deadline of the advanced grant call until May, but this had some other impact on how the call was implemented. So for now, we are back to a situation where we will, I think, maintain also for 2025 the August deadline.
And we will see if we can change it for 2026. We take the point into consideration. There is a question on the ethics issues table.
Yes,
it's about what is the technical annex.
The technical annex is the PAPI 2. So if there is an ethics issue, this is a guidance to our ethics colleagues and the ethics experts that will conduct an ethical review on all projects selected for funding, and also the reserve listed projects. And this is just a guidance to them where to find the information in case you want to link it to some information in the proposal. So it's for them to be able to find the description. And I also saw a question about whether smaller items, for instance, below 5,000 K, has to be included in the equipment table. And the answer is yes, but you can group smaller items in one line if they have a similar use percentage. So this should limit the number of lines you will need to fill.
The question on the participants outside the EU, and I understand participants, if they are applicants, they have to come to the EU to do the project, but if they are members of the team, they can be outside the EU. Who wants to take this question? Who wants to answer?
I can take this question.
Yes, Dia.
Yes, I've already answered it in writing in Slido, but yes, it is possible to include institutions other than the host institution as participants and as additional beneficiaries in a proposal. And these institutions can be outside an EU member state and outside of an associated country. I think the question that I got was the US, institutions from the US and from China. So yes, it is possible. It has to be justified well. The applicant has to explain well what is the scientific added value for including these, and they can receive part of the budget. This is one way to do it, and it's the most common way to do it when you have team members that are affiliated with institutions other than the host institution.
Maybe we should remind that the principal investigator must be in the EU at least for 50% of their time, and it needs to have 40%, no, 30% dedication to the project.
Minimum.
Yes.
Minimum. So subcontractors, maybe Lawrence, you want to take this one? Is a selection at least 3 offers required for subcontractors? I think you are muted.
I think Lawrence is muting himself when he is projecting.
Yes.
So you can maybe stop projecting, Lawrence, and take this last question.
Okay, sorry. Yes, so the question about the number of subcontractor or at least companies to be contacted in case of subcontracting, this is nothing to do with lump sum. You just need to follow once again the rules, the procurement rules of your institution. But indeed, what is important to know is that the procedure followed when selecting a subcontractor is part of the possible checks that can be done during an ex post technical reviews. So you still need to comply with the procurement rules independently on the type of funding you receive. So actual cost or lump sum funding model does not change anything there. You need to follow the rules, and this compliance can be assessed ex post during a review.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can take a couple more before passing to the next part. Specifically the ones that are about the submission. I see one that says, I think it has already been answered. Is it mandatory to perform a financial audit during the project? No, the answer is no. Should resources be planned for this? No. But there is another one interesting that says, I am helping a researcher who's applying for the 2.5 million euro, including the overhead, but will also be applying for measuring equipment. Will there also be overhead added to this, Lawrence? And
yes, so the overheads apply to all direct costs, so including major equipment. That doesn't change anything there.
But not on top of the million, included in the million.
Obviously, this is the maximum contribution set in the work program includes every cost, including the overheads.
Yes.
And there's another question. Can you summarize what the change clearer focus on research proposal means in practice? This is about the changes in the work program. Dia or Line, what do we mean? These were the changes from the Scientific Council.
I can take this if you want, Josefina.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Angela.
So I think this is just the Scientific Council had a discussion about whether the panel should give more focus on the actual project, the excellence of the project, or the excellence of the PI. And in the past, the wording in the work program would suggest that both should count more or less equally. But in practice, this was not the case. In practice, it was seen that the panels in the end, they would put more focus on the project, on the excellence of the project. They would also be looking at the PI, of course, but the main focus was on the excellence of the project. And the council had a discussion about this, and they have now reworded slightly the work program to account better for what they think it should be and what was done already in practice in the past. And the wording in the work program now is that the panels will primarily evaluate the groundbreaking nature, the ambition and the feasibility of the research project. But then at the same time, the panels will also evaluate the intellectual capacity, creativity and commitment of the PI. So it's slightly, the nuance is slightly different. So that's what we mean by more focus on the project compared to the PI, but it does not mean that the track record of the PI is no longer relevant. It's just, you know, that the focus, it's clarified now that the focus is on the project.
Thank you very much, Angela. This is the perfect transition to start the part of the evaluation. But before we start this section, I would like to address this comment. Apparently, one of our answers was not clear. Are signed forms necessary for everyone mentioned by name in the project or not?
So what we need is to make sure that all collaborators that are mentioned in your proposal has consented to be part of the work to be implemented. So this is why we ask to have this written proof that they are aware and agree with working with you on your project. So you don't need the written consent if you're already working within, you know, for your team members that are hired in the same institution, but for everyone else, you need a written proof. But we don't need you to submit this written proof. We just need you to have it available in case a question comes up during the evaluation. We need to be able to ask this written proof from you, and you need to be able to send us this written proof upon request. But this is something that we do very rarely, but it's just to make sure that everybody are aware that so that a name is not sort of misused or misrepresented in a proposal. That's what we're trying to avoid. I hope this is now clear.
Particularly important in the case of former collaborators or resubmissions, that is clear that they are kept in the track and they know that they are supposed to participate in the new project. Could we have the slides again, please, Line? And Angela will start the next section on evaluation.
No, actually, I will continue this section.
Okay, perfect.
So I see, Josefina, you inserted again in case anyone wants to join the Slido session in another device. You can use this QR code or the hashtag. If you go to slido.com, you use the hashtag Advanced Grant 2024 with the passcode ERC 2024.
And again, we will also answer in writing, and we will download the archive of all the questions and answers, and we will also put it on our website.
Yeah. So now we move to the second part of this webinar, and we focus a bit more on the evaluation of your proposals. So let me just move here. As I mentioned in the beginning, the evaluation criteria remains on scientific excellence only, as also just explained by Angela, which means that the focus of the evaluation remains on the scientific merits of the proposal and of the PI. The experts will assess the requested resources needed for the project. So, for instance, staffing, consumables, equipment, fieldwork, travels, etc., and also the plausibility of the cost estimated for each of these resources. And the cost and the resources are then assessed together during evaluation, but the detailed discussions and assessment of the cost estimates, whether they are reasonable and non-excessive, will happen only once the ranked list is established at step 2, where the panels will make their recommendation on the final lump sum contribution for main and reserve listed proposals. And because the advanced grant projects will now be paid as lump sum, the panel will, as before, assess the reasonability of the estimated cost, including the personal costs. They will both look at the number and the effort of the staff and the associated personal cost, and whether these costs are properly justified. You, as applicants, have access to the historical ERC personal cost data, which are based on our actual payments since 2018 and which will serve as a benchmark. You can access this database via a website, and we also included the link in this presentation, which will be available as of this afternoon, also via the call website. The panel likewise may use this benchmark during their assessment of the personal cost together with your written justification for these costs. Regardless of the historical data, you should plan and budget according to the personal cost you expect to incur during the project. Personal costs which are significantly higher than historical data are acceptable if they are justified, for instance, by the nature of the task, the need for senior and highly qualified staff, and if your institution is expecting significant increases in personal cost for one or another reason. You just need to explain this to the panel. And as I already mentioned, we've developed this database of ERC historical personal cost, which was made available at the call opening and is now publicly accessible for everyone. And this is due to our obligation as an agency to provide our experts with an objective benchmarking to help assess whether personal costs are reasonable, and for you as applicants to assess whether you need to provide a more detailed justification for any high personal costs. The layout of this database is in line with the general Horizon dashboard, but it's based on our own historical data of actual payments made for personnel since 2018 and until the call deadline, because we have a better resolution of the data and we can provide this per staff category. The ERC dashboard includes filters by country and staff category, but there will be countries or specific staff categories for certain countries where we do not have enough data to provide a proper benchmark. And the next slide is just to show you how the ERC historical data on personal cost is projected in the dashboard. As in the Horizon dashboard, we indicate the 20th, 50th, and 80th percentile to the left, but we've also included data which go above and below 20 and 80% to give a more comprehensive picture. The dashboard has guidance on the filtering, and we also provide guidance to the experts, to our experts in the panels, to indicate that personal costs varies between countries, between host institutions of the same country, and also between different research fields. And then I have a few slides again to share with you some of the most frequent questions we have received related to the evaluation process of this first lump sum pilot. We had many questions on whether this new model could affect the evaluation of your proposal, and the answer is a clear no. The main focus of the evaluation remains on the scientific merits of your proposal. And some of our applicants have been concerned about the assessment of the budget, particularly the assessment of personal costs. If a panel considers the budget excessive or not reliable, it will make precise recommendations to adapt the lump sum amount during grant preparation. And there will also be a possibility for the agency to verify the cost estimates with the beneficiaries during the granting process. And this is just to make sure that there's no mistakes happening, for instance, as a consequence of a simple typo. Concerning the Part A, the evaluation panels will not have access to the administrative form, except that we extract the Section 3, which includes the budget table and the narrative description and scientific justification of the resources, and also the PI time commitment extracted from Section 5 of the administrative form. They will also have access to the equipment depreciation table if they wish to look into these details. And as always, the applicants who are invited for Step 2 interview should be prepared for questions regarding the proposal budget and the related requested resources, and be able to explain these for the panel if something is not clear. And the last question is whether applicants have to follow the benchmarks provided by the ERC historical personal cost data, and I hope that by now it's clear that it's no. You don't have to follow the benchmark, budgeted personnel costs can be higher than the dashboard averages, for instance, due to inflation, pay rise, etc., if they are justified. You just have to remember to fill in your justification. And I think now we will open the floor for the Q&A session. So I hand back to you, Lawrence.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to present the question now.
Yes, the first one was already addressed, and the second one as well. Yeah, there is one interesting about the PI. If they are committing a certain percentage of time to the project, but lower percentage of PI cost is requested, what should be put in the table?
So there are actually two options here. Either you put in all the, I mean, you should put in the total number of person months that the PI will spend working on the project and the full total cost of the personal costs of the PI. And then you simply request a lower amount, and you explain in the bottom text box that, for instance, 1 year of the PI working time, or even all the personal cost of the PI, for instance, will be covered by the host institution. So this will give the panels a really fair view on the budget and the time commitment of the PI. So this is the preferred option.
Because the new table has one of the parts is more structured, and one of the boxes is the part of the project that is the part of the costs that are covered outside the ERC grant. So actually the total person months should be put, but then one part of this, you can exceed in this case the 2.5 million because there is one part that is covered by the host institution. Lawrence, which questions would you highlight for us?
The problem is that I don't think that the right question is shown. I don't know why when I export the question on evaluation, it seems that there are other questions coming up. So can you read this one here?
Yes, in case of similar scientific merits between several projects, could the project asking for lower quantities of funds be prioritized in order to provide funds for more projects? Angela?
Yeah, thank you for this question. This is will not be the case. So the panel will evaluate the proposal based on its scientific merits before discussing the budget in more detail. So there might be questions come up by reviewers during the evaluation about the budget. There might also be questions about this during the discussion at the panel meeting, or even questions during the interview. But the detailed look at the budget that you plan this will happen only after the rank list was finalized. So the panel is not allowed to take this into consideration when they make their decision about the scientific merits of the proposal.
First science, and then we see the list and we see the budgets. And related to that, will a minimum commitment of 30% of the PI be reviewed negatively?
No, I can also take this one. So this depends on your project. So the time commitment of the PI needs to match the requirements of the project and needs to match also your track record and your demonstrated ability to conduct such a large project. So if this is all convincing, the way you present it, for this project you can manage with only 30% time commitment, then this will not be looked at negatively.
If I may, Angela, I will just also reply to another question which is not shown here, because I remember it was asked at least a few times regarding what needs to be encoded in the budget table for the personal cost of the PI when there is a difference between what is committed and what is claimed under the grant. So the PI time commitment is one thing which is to be seen separately from the cost that you might estimate in the proposal in relation to the PI. So for the cost, you really need to estimate how much you will charge over the project. When for the PI time commitment, it's the commitment that the PI will dedicate to the action and in Europe, independently of what will be charged financially through the grant. But so please, you can go on, Angela.
Exactly. So your salary could even be covered by other sources, and you could still have a time commitment of 30% to the project.
And there is a question on the language of the interview. The interview should be only in English.
Yes, I think the working language of the panel is English. I think formally you can submit your application in any other language, but I think there's a recommendation or suggestion that it is better to have it translated to English. I'm not aware that we ever had an interview in any other language than English. So working language of the panel is English.
Even written proposals in theory can be sent in other languages, but we set a budget for translation every year, we never use it. And it's better that you are in control of what you send to the panel. If you need to translate, it's good to do it on your side. But for the interview, it would be very difficult. And we don't have systems of simultaneous interpretation for the.
And if I may add to that, I mean, don't forget our panel is very international. So they come from different countries in the world, our panel members, and not everybody on our panel is perfect native English speaker. So they will show a lot of understanding for applicants who perhaps do not master the English language perfectly well. So I would not be afraid of this.
And we recommend, of course, the part of the presentation of the project itself to be rehearsed and to be prepared. And for that, the host institution support offices can help greatly. And later, the questions and answers, well, then we, of course, the panel will have to be lenient with the linguistic proficiency. There is an optimistic question here. Somebody who acknowledged that the chances of projecting themselves to be in the interview are slim, but still want to know what are the weeks in March that are planned for these interviews. Line, do you have the calendar?
Yes, I'm opening it now, Josefina. So the tentative dates for the step 2 interviews for the PE panels of the Advanced Grant 2024 is the week of 17th to 21st of March 25.
We always try to avoid Easter and all.
Yeah, we have 3 subsequent weeks of the Advanced Grant Step 2 interview starting on the 10th of March with Social Sciences and Humanities panels, followed by the Physical Sciences and Engineering panels on 17th to 21st of March, and then 24th to 28th of March, it's the Life Sciences panels to go. But this is a tentative planning that may be subject to changes, but this is our indicative planning.
Still, there is 50% of success rate, and there are 44 proposals per panel that are invited to the interview. So, okay, it's very good to have this mind frame. What is significantly higher regarding the personnel costs? Is 20% higher than the 80% percentile significant? Who can answer that? Lawrence?
Yes, no problem. About that, there is no set threshold or figures. Here, the recommendation is the more relevant justification you add to justify the cost that you will estimate, the better. We didn't again set any limit or a point where you would absolutely need to justify or not. Obviously, this will be also depending on each expert, I would say. So, if someone else wants to complement the answer.
Yes, I'd like to add to this. The important message here is that you should budget for the cost that you expect to incur. based on your host institution's usual practice. So if you, and then you can double check with this historical data that we make available. And if you find that there's that a panel, a reviewer could potentially think that your costs are much higher than in the past, then explain why. And the explanation you can provide could simply be, this is the normal tariff or the normal personnel cost that is expected for the next 5 years at my host institution. That could be sufficient. So we encourage you not to worry too much about that, but to really go for what you expect to incur and then explain that. And then you will be able also to justify this should anybody question this. Don't try to make something up because you think that the panel wants to see this or that above a certain threshold, they will ask more questions. Go for what you expect to incur realistically over the next 5 years. And that's fine. And if you find that it is far above the historical data, then just explain this is what you expect to occur at your host institution. It is expected that personnel costs increase over time, and the panel is also aware that there is inflation over the next few years. So all this you can take into account. You do not need to worry that the panel will micromanage your personnel costs based on the historical data. That's not the intention of this data. It's to give a general benchmark of what it was in the past. So obviously in the future, there's an expectation that personnel costs increase.
There is a question that affects both submission and evaluation. Just disappear? No, it went down. And I think there is a misunderstanding here in this question. It says, since the payment is dependent on the performance, which I don't think is the case, is it necessary to specify any milestones or plan measurable markers, number of publications, etc. in the proposal? So it has the two parts, the evaluation and the things that need to be done at the submission time. Angela?
I can also take this, yes. So indeed, there seems to be a misunderstanding here because the payment is not dependent on the performance. The payment is dependent on the fact that you work towards implementing your project. So you work on the project, you carry out activities towards the overall objectives of your project. As long as you can demonstrate that in your scientific reports at midterm at the end, then the payment will follow. So you don't have to be successful because what you're doing, ERC projects are doing frontier research. Not everything works as planned originally. Still at the end of the 5 years, you will have worked for 5 years and you can be paid for this work, independent of whether it was successful or not. And then the second part of the question was about deliverables and milestones. No, because in the past, ERC, one of the basic principles of ERC is that you do not need to have milestones and deliverables, scientific deliverables. And this does not change just because of the introduction of the new financial model. So this remains as it used to be for ERC projects.
Thank you very much. There are a few questions. Can you explain the thinking around the removal of the high risk, high gain wording in the core evaluation questions?
I can also try to answer this. So high risk, high gain always created some discussion during panel meetings because something can be extremely high gain but rather low risk because it's just such a great idea. It could provide high gain without a lot of risk, and it would still be quite interesting to fund under ERC. So that's why this combination high risk, high gain was avoided in the current work program. And instead, the wording is more about the ambitious nature of the innovative character of the project. So it does not mean this is the important message. This change does not mean that ERC is now funding less risky research or less innovative research or less ambitious research. It's just a little fine-tuning that was made because the high risk, high gain notion always created some discussion, notably the question, what about low risk but high gain? So the message is ambition, ambitious research.
Thank you very much, Angela. I think the next one is for Dia. Dia, do you have statistics on the academic age of advanced grants researchers?
Well, we must have somewhere, but I'm not in the position right now to recover it. Perhaps over the course of the next minutes, if we can move to the next question.
We can also answer in writing. Yes, actually, advanced grants doesn't have a window like for starting and COG, and we have applicants from all the spectrum, and of course the distribution has a maximum somewhere. And if you can find it, that would be very, very nice.
Maybe I can say something to that, Josefina, because this question kind of implies that perhaps you need to have a certain academic age to apply for advanced grant. And there I would want to say that you should not worry too much. You do not have to be a certain academic age in order to apply for advanced grant. As soon as you fall out of the COG window, you should go for advanced grant. You should not be afraid thinking that you are too junior, because the panel will take this into consideration when they evaluate your proposal, whether you're of a more junior or more senior academic age.
Yes, and as we see in this graph, even during the COG window, there are some exceptional projects that get funded. So you see the light blue is advanced grants, and thank you very much. So as from 12 years since a PhD on, and there are people. I tend to remember, we don't see because there are really low numbers, but I tend to remember that there are even at the end of the starting grant some exceptional cases. Mathematics and other panels can have young people, and they keep applying until 52 years after PhD, which I think is an exception also.
In fact, if I can just add, Josefina, here, I don't think we have data for age, but only for academic age, which is the graph that you just showed. And in fact, what Angela said very much is the case, that you don't see people who are in the early phase, let's say, of their advanced grant eligibility. That there's no decline in their success rate. They're as successful as people who are of older academic age.
We have also the age of all applicants if you want to see it.
We do, but in our statistics we often use the academic age. Yes, this is the actual age.
Yeah.
Yes, so advanced grants. Well, there are a few exceptions at the beginning of the young ones. And then I don't think the average should be calculated, but you see the two peaks of the median. I would say between mid-40s and mid-50s or late 50s. This is the bulk of the applications. Mm-hmm. And of course, we have double and triple grantees, and people have several advanced grants in their research career. I am having a look at the other questions, and I want to pick up one that is general from Guillaume Chapron. Is the team needed to do the research supposed to be already hired and in place, or is it possible to hire new people or even to create ex nihilo a new team to address an entirely new question? Who wants to answer that? That's a beautiful one. Angela, Line?
Yeah, I can try. Dia can maybe also complement.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you can hire new people, of course, for the project. You can also establish a complete new team if this is needed. And then you would just describe the qualities that you will be looking for in this new hire in the proposal itself. I don't know if you want to complement this, Dia.
No, yeah, nothing further to add.
Let me try to share from my screen. I have put the general because we have had this. Can I share or can I not? Do you see it?
No.
Because oops.
Here now we see.
It's coming, Josefina.
Okay. Then now I don't see it anymore. But yes, I put the general label because we have answered a few on the evaluation part, but there are some that are general. Which are the one that you see? Because I don't see what I'm sharing.
The first one is the one that we tried to answer before about the percentage time commitment and what to put in the form.
And the problem, no, it doesn't keep the labeling. Oh,
we see you scrolling now.
Yes, because I saw something, and then when I share, it goes back to popular. It was. I am trying to take the generic ones. I think I'm going to stop sharing because otherwise I cannot see I lose the ones that were. Sorry. Up, going back to general. Is VAT considered as eligible costs?
So here I can
yeah.
maybe reply. So the condition for the eligibility of costs to be included in the proposal are exactly the same as for the actual cost grant. So there is no difference there. Whatever you will include in your proposal, in the budget of your proposal, any items needs to be eligible. Regarding the VAT, what is not eligible is the refundable VAT. So if you have non-refundable or VAT that you cannot be refunded on, it can be claimed as eligible cost.
And another one on financial part, the lump sum, they say, if they understood it correctly, the lump sum model implies a 25% flat rate meant for the department host institution, which really means that the money devoted to the actual science is reduced by a quarter. Is that interpretation correct? Is it a flat rate 25
Yes.
or
it is?
Yes, it is.
And then
change compared to the actual cost model. This was always the case for all Horizon Europe cores and even most Horizon 2020. There has been a flat rate.
And a tricky one, can we propose a project with B or C that has gotten a B or C next year with different PI?
I think I answered this in writing. The resubmission restrictions that for applicants who received a B or a C in step 1 in the previous year apply to the PI, but not to the host institution, if I understand the question well. So, of course, a host institution can reapply as host institution with different PIs. So.
It's a different PI, it's a different project.
Yeah.
Well, it should be rewritten, and that I don't see the question anymore, but I read one in the flow of questions when I mentioned they wanted to clarify what I mentioned before, that there were changes for resubmission. No, that didn't mean that. What I meant is because the forms have changed this year, PIs resubmitting a proposal from previous years need to change the format. Basically, of course, any resubmission has an update of the science as well, but what we mean is that they need to be careful because there are parts that will need to be redone, especially the budget ones, because they are not compatible with the ones that they did for the year before. Do you want to comment on that, Dia? What do we get a lot of errors, clerical errors, when in the tables, in the Excel? What would be your advice to applicants?
Well, we do get some clerical errors. I don't know if we will have more this year because of the introduction of the lump sum model. We'll see. But I guess, yes, those who have submitted the previous years and now are resubmitting, yeah, they have to be a little bit more careful to see the changes, to adapt to the changes.
On that, perhaps there is a question in relation to that. Has the budget narrative to be more comprehensive than before? So for those who are reapplying, or for those who are applying and had in mind or knew so far the old system? Well, it depends a little bit on how comprehensive you had it in the past. I think it is clear that for the lump sum model, the budget narrative has to be comprehensive. And in order to help you to have a comprehensive budget narrative, we have now structured this narrative in these 6 boxes. This will help you provide a comprehensive narrative. But if you already had a very detailed budget narrative in the past, you do not necessarily have to have more detail now. But for those who maybe did not have a very detailed budget narrative, they maybe should make more efforts with the lump sum model to have a comprehensive budget narrative. But the limitations in characters will prevent you also from writing very long paragraphs. It has to be, you need to demonstrate that you have thought about your budget and that your budget makes sense for this project that you are proposing, and explain why you need certain budget items, and then you should be fine. So you need a comprehensive budget, but depending on not how you did it in the past, it doesn't need to be more or less more detailed or very different from the past, but it will be more structured, and it needs to be comprehensive for the panel to be able to confidently give you this money without knowing that there will be no cost claims during the course of the project.
Thank you very much. There are on the costs, there is one question about laptops. The host institution considers laptops as equipment, but they don't need to depreciate them according to the university rules. In my experience, laptops is more and more a consumable, like mobile phones. But how should they record these costs in the equipment table? So there is no depreciation, but they put it 1 month depreciated, or how do you do it? Lawrence, can you answer this one?
So for this question, I would say that if the institution does not consider that as consumable, but fully depreciate or write off the cost, you should put 100% use for the project over the total duration of the depreciation time, which lead to a result which is 100% of the cost you will incur.
Yeah, as long as the depreciation is inside the window of the project. And I know that many institutions consider laptops 4 years and mobile phones 3 years, so that could be inside the project perfectly. Colleagues, is there any of you who detect questions from the list that would be worth to answer orally? Or we could, because I don't see among the highly voted, there are no novelties. Otherwise, we answer them in writing. By the way, there is a comment from someone who apparently sent an email to the help, to the functional mailbox, and they didn't receive an answer. I apologize on behalf of the agency. Please send it again, and we will make sure we answer very quickly, because now we are in the last final days of submission, and we know that it's important that you receive your answers quickly. But sometimes problems happen with the questions, with the emails. Maybe Dia, you can have a comment on this. How many questions we receive daily, and how many people are answering them?
Yes, we receive a really high volume of questions this year, probably because of the introduction of the lump sum model, and we do reply to every and each one of the questions. I will take a look if there was one that was missing. It's usually never missing, but we may be a little bit late. This is not to say we're getting close to the deadline, so we try to answer the questions within 2 days or within a very few days since applicants are getting ready to submit their proposals. So yes, we'll take a look at the unanswered question.
Josefina, if you allow me, maybe just to precise one thing about the equipment table. The equipment table that you will be able to download is coming with instructions in order to help you filling it in. And one of the principles, maybe it will clarify a little bit what needs to be included or not in the table, is that any piece or items of equipment which is budgeted in the part A of the proposal, in the heading C2, if I'm not mistaken, should be included in the equipment table for the total of the equipment table to match the equipment which is budgeted in the budget table, the overall budget table.
Thank you. I see one interesting question about the additional funding. In the budget text box for the request for additional funding, they are asked to indicate under which of the 4 cost categories the request falls. Does this refer to the A, B, C, D on the budget table, or A, D in the same text box? Startup, major equipment, facilities, other. And I think, of course, this is ambiguous, but it does refer to the additional funding categories, not to the A, B, C, D boxes in the budget. Who wants to comment on this? Maybe Angela or Lawrence or both from the scientific and the
Yes,
and
indeed.
the
I mean, you can request additional funding of up to 1 million only for activities under those 4 categories. So either for large piece of equipment, for major field work, for access to large facilities, or for startup costs. Startup costs means costs in relation to moving to the EU or an associated country as a result of obtaining the ERC grant. So for any of those categories, you can request additional funding of up to 1 million in addition to the 2.5 regular funding. And this needs to be described in that box, you know, why you are requesting additional funding and what for, and under which of those 4 categories it falls.
There is a question on the on the deadline. Actually, this is a very general question. Do you tend to face system downtimes close to the deadline? What is the latest we suggest submitting on the portal? DIA. I mean, of course, the answer is as soon as possible, but DIA, have we experienced trouble when we are close to the deadline? And what is the latest that you would suggest to push the button?
I don't think I'll say anything new on this. Of course, the sooner the better, and usually a lot of people are trying to submit the last, not only the last day, but the last hours. And so technical difficulties, not on our part, but you know, technical difficulties can always occur, and when you have time, you are in a better position to resolve it. So, you know, don't leave it for the last minute.
And remember,
because there is a risk.
This year, you need to upload the PDF of the budget table, even if it's empty, and that might prevent you from submitting. You need to upload the declaration 10. So don't leave it for the last time. This gives a lot of technical problems.
Yes, and perhaps to add to that, and dear, correct me if I'm wrong, you can always submit. And then if you want to still make changes afterwards, you can do those. And by the submission deadline, the last submitted version will count. So we really strongly advise that you don't leave it to the last day.
Exactly.
If you miss the deadline, there's nothing we will be able to do about it.
And we have this every year, not necessarily for advanced grants, in the different calls. Every year we have the sad case of somebody who didn't submit on time, and they have to present logs of the activity. It's only if the error is on our server we can take it, but often it cannot be proved, or it can be any server the host institution, and able something in between. So yes, please submit an advanced draft as soon as you have it, because it's better to have an advanced draft evaluated than nothing. And that is generic for all the calls. Can you clarify the single work package? I know, Line, that you already clarified it, but there is a question saying that your answer suggests that applicants already need to structure their work plan as work package 1.1, 1.2. And I don't think you said they need to.
No, I think what I said was in fact the opposite, that you can structure it in 5 or 7 or 10 work packages. But once your proposal is successful and it goes to granting, we will formally sign it as one package, one work package, regardless of how it was structured in your proposal. And this is because we do an upfront 80% prepayment of the lump sum that has been decided for your project. And then the last 20% of the payment happens at the final payment, and it's linked to the final scientific report. So it's just on our part to be able to give you a good pre-financing, and for you not to have to chop up and plan very detailed, very small work packages, because this is what we have seen from other European Commission lump sum type 2 actions, that this is what is happening, that to ensure payment, applicants, they create a lot of smaller work packages, and they can then sign off as being complete to obtain their payment. And this is where our model is significantly different from other lump sum type 2 actions. So you can structure it in work packages. You don't have to do work package 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. You're completely free to label it as you want.
And just for information, we only have a certain number of projects who even use different work packages. We have many projects at the ERC across the different domains who do not have any subdivisions of their ERC project. And this will continue to be possible also in the future. So there's no change here. You do not need to change the way you think about the structure of your project because of the change of the financial model.
That's for the scientific structure, but there is one question on the structure of the information. Should there be no mention of justification of resources in B2? Should everything be in A? The slides from the previous webinar state that the B2 should contain justification of resources. Is this accurate? Angela?
I think it's, I don't remember exactly what was on the slide. Maybe there was a mistake, and in that case, we apologize.
No,
but
I think
use of resources is described in the section use of resources, where you have your budget table and where you have these 6 different sections. That's where you describe your the resources that you are requested.
Yes,
so that's not part B2. That's not the scientific proposal.
But we always say that it needs to be justified by the science. They need to be in part B2. The activities proposed need to be
to match the budget and the requests of the resources. Yes, it needs to be aligned for the activities that you propose in your project.
Mm-hmm. And I think we are going to close very soon. Is there any question that hasn't been answered that any of the speakers would like to highlight? Otherwise,
I don't know if we have the most popular one, and I don't know if they've been answered in writing, but we had it before, and maybe apparently it was not clear. So if the salary of the PI is fully covered by the HI, should it be written 0 in the budget form? So you can choose to write 0 months, or as the months that the PI would be working, but with 0 budget. Or you can enter the budget of the personal cost and then explain in the last text box of the budget narrative that these costs will be covered by the host institution. So these are the 2 options, but the panel members will see your time dedication, your time commitment in percentage, they will see it as part of the proposal budget that we make available to them in step 2 during the step 2 evaluation. So you can choose either model. You're free to do that.
Maybe to precise, Lina, if I'm not mistaken, that there is an additional element not to forget is not to request this part of the cost in the contribution. So you can describe all the costs that will be related to the project implementation. Then you will have to decide how much of this cost will be covered through the grant, which will be the requested contribution. And then in the different section of the narrative part, you can explain a bit more in detail.
Exactly. Thank you, Lawrence.
Yes, and one more thing, if I can say, just if we can show the address of the Advanced Grants 2024 functional mailbox, because there is a number of different addresses. The participant who asked, who mentioned that they didn't receive an answer, I cannot find their message in the 2024 Advanced Grants functional mailbox. So just make sure that you write to the correct email address, which is right here, the ERC 2024 ADG applicants.
And check our website, because we are going to put the slides with all these links that are now here, and in of course this functional mailbox. There is an arithmetic question. There is now the most voted one. It reminds me of the problems in the school. If we have 3 postdocs 100% of the time for 60 months, should we write 180 months in the form? Yes. And if we have one person 50% of the time for 5 years, should we write 30 months instead of 60? Dia and Line.
Yes,
Yes.
Lina is nodding, and that's correct. Yes, 50% of a PI's time in a 60-month project, you should write 30 months. Yes, and same calculation for the postdocs.
Okay, thank you. Before we close, I would like each of you to give me a little pearl or tip, or what would be the main takeaway that you would like to give to applicants that are frenetically finishing their applications in a moment where many host institutions offices are closed. Thank you very much for the lots of people from host institutions that are working now, because we have a lot of them today in the webinar. What would be your main takeaway to in the last 10 days to preparing the proposal? I will start with Line.
Yes, I would again ask you to please at least try to hit the submit button, even if your proposal is not completely ready to be submitted, just to make sure that there are no errors in your form. Because then it allows us to help you, sort any problems out, and you to be, feel safe, and that you can override your proposal several times until the core deadline of 5 o'clock on the 29th of August, because we are extremely sad when we have to exclude someone from the evaluation, because we know how much effort you put into preparing your proposal. And yes, so I don't know, it's sometimes particularly difficult for applicants to add additional beneficiaries at a late moment when they hit the submit button. So I don't know if, Josefina, you can allow me to quickly show how to do that, if that's okay. So if I go back to the form, you see this is the home page. So of course you have always to upload part B1, part B2. The system will automatically check if the part B1 and part B2 are named identical. It will give an error message. You upload your host support letter and the equipment table, even if it's empty. But if you want to add an additional beneficiary, you cannot do it by clicking edit forms. This is not where you do it. Or if you want to change the information for instance, for yourself, your email address or the main host institution contact, you have to go back to the participant list, and it requires you to scroll down and click this button here. And then here you can add an additional beneficiary, you can add a contact, here you add a partner, and then you can search by pick, or you can search by the name of the beneficiary, and it allows you to choose it and add it. And once you've done that, you save and you go to the next step, which brings you back to the edit forms. And here it's extremely important that you're not done. You can then not click submit. You have to reopen the forms, edit the information of the additional beneficiary, save it, and then you're allowed to submit. And you can always click on validate to check that all information is correct, that you have no blocking errors. You will see if I do that. You see that I've made changes to the step participants, and so I have to edit the form, for instance. But so just that you know that this may take some time, and it should not prevent you from submitting your proposal.
But let's challenge participants to do it now. Maybe today, homework to try to check the validate the proposals. And we always have a number of proposals extra that are not complete. And we understand that some are tests, some are people who withdraw and doesn't finalize. But it's good to push the button. Thank you. That's a very good takeaway. Angela, what would be the takeaway you want people to get from this webinar?
I think my main message would be that you should not change the way you think about your ERC project. Don't think differently about the ambitious nature of your project because of this change in financial model. But we hope, on the other hand, that this new model will facilitate your life, will reduce the administrative burden for our PIs.
Thank you. Dia, what would be the main message that you would like to share?
Well, my colleagues Line and Angela have said it all. I can say just aim for an early submission as early as possible, and that we are here to support you and answer any questions you may have before the deadline.
Yes, and when you write, you will have more confidentiality than here writing on Slido, so you can give more details, and of course we will treat everything confidentially. There is a question, what is the appropriate budget for open access cost? We cannot answer that. 20 publications, is it too ambitious? Depends on the field, depends on so many things. We cannot answer questions like what is the appropriate budget? It will depend on the science that you plan to do, on your previous experience, on the experience on other groups in your host institution. But other kinds of questions, of course, we are very happy to offer guidance. Lawrence, what would be your main message?
Thank you, Josefina. Well, listen, I think indeed it's becoming trickier and trickier to give another tip after what has been said already. But in any case, I think the key message is that don't be too concerned about the change of funding model. Indeed, in particular for the application stage, there is no drastic changes except for the little addition in terms of how the information is structured. It is basically the same for you. So focus on your application, focus on your proposal, and yeah, just don't hesitate to contact us through the functional mailbox. We are there to support you during the preparation of your proposal, but also in the course of all the lifetime of your project, if hopefully you will be funded.
And Alejandro from the legal department, is there any message that you want to give? We haven't spoken a lot of implementation or payments, just a little bit, but
well, I would like to turn a bit just and wish you principal investigators, potential principal investigators or supporting teams good luck in the upcoming proposal. So luck with the evaluation. And should you be successful, please keep in mind the figure of the project officer for any question you may have regarding implementation. As colleagues have said, not many changes have been introduced for the evaluation and application and evaluation, a bit more probably for the implementation, but we do hope that this is to alleviate the administrative burden, which has been criticized or at least put on question many times. So yes, thank you for your time and hope this training has been helpful.
Thank you very much. Thanks for all the participants. We had over 500 participants today. We hope this has been useful to you. Don't hesitate to use all the channels of help. Send us emails. We will take into consideration for future years to change the deadlines. Thank you very much for this applause. I love it. I love these reactions. And you will find all this in our website, and we will do our best to answer all the questions that have remained unanswered today. Thank you very much. Good luck. Bye.